I swear by the crystalline peaks of Xylo 7, if I have to evaluate another incomprehensible paper about the quantum entanglement of societal structures in small asteroid settlements, I will willingly throw myself into the nearest black hole. Professor Zilk Magnus moaned, his tentacles drooping dramatically over the edge of his anti-gravity desk. His colleague, Dr. Bloop Bleep, rolled all 6 of her eye stalks in unison. "Oh, come on, Zilk, it can't be that bad. At least your students can form a coherent thought without accidentally summoning an eldritch beast from the rift between dimensions. Remember last semester's incident with the Lovecraftian poetry class? The faculty lounge of the Galactic University of Hees, affectionately known as GUH by students who couldn't be bothered with its full name, was abuzz with the usual end-of-term grievances. Professors from 100 different species floated, lounged, or slithered around the room, exchanging notes on the latest academic disasters. The door to the faculty lounge suddenly burst open with a dramatic whoosh, interrupting what promised to be another riveting complaint about the deteriorating standards of galactic education. In stumbled Administrator Gloopy Gloop, his gelatinous form quivering with what seemed to be a mixture of excitement and sheer terror. "You won't believe what just happened in the quantum library." Gloopy Gloop gurgled, his words barely discernible through his trembling membrane. Zilk Magnus and Bloop Bleep exchanged a weary glance. "Let me guess," Zilk said, extending a tentacle to stir his cup of hyper-caffeinated neutron star brew. "Another Zorian set fire to the ancient scroll section while trying to read by bioluminescence? Or perhaps the quantum students phased through the restricted area again?" "No, no! It's the human." Gloopy Gloop's body rippled in frustration, small bubbles of agitation forming and popping across his surface. "The human?" Zilk Magnus asked cautiously, his tentacles curling in apprehension. "You don't mean?" "Yes. She's in the quantum library, studying with a Razofong," Gloopy Gloop exclaimed. The silence that followed was so profound, you could have heard a particle split. Dr. Bloop Bleep whispered, her carapace pale to a sickly shade of chartreuse. "But those are Class N predators. How did one even get past the orbital defense grid?" Zilk Magnus waved a tentacle dismissively, though the gesture lacked his usual confidence. "Please, this must be a misunderstanding. Humans may be Deathworlders, but even they wouldn't be foolish enough to. I saw it with my own sensory globules." Gloopy Gloop insisted, his form undulating with urgency, so much so that he was in danger of splitting into several smaller, equally panicked administrators. "We have to do something before it devours half the student body and uses their bones to floss its galaxy-renowned teeth." The 3 educators hurried out of the lounge, their various appendages propelling them at impressive speeds toward the quantum library, through the winding Nanyukin hallways of the university. They passed a variety of confused students and faculty. "What's the hurry?" called Professor Photon Stroder from the Quantum Felinity Department, existing in a state of both hurrying and not hurrying at the same time. "Potential student fatalities in the library." Bloop Bleep called back. Photon simply shrugged. "I do hope it's not another incident with the theoretical mathematicians proving themselves out of existence again." As they approached the quantum library's grand entrance, designed to accommodate beings of all sizes, shapes, and dimensions, they could hear the sound of laughter. Cautiously, they peered around the corner into the main study area, which shifted and changed as the quantum uncertainties of knowledge itself fluctuated. There, at a table clearly not designed for creatures with spines, sat Sarah Thompson, the only human student at Galactic University. Next to her, curled up like an oversized, deadly house cat, was indeed a Razofong. The Razofong, a creature infamous throughout the galaxy for its ability to shred starship hulls with a single swipe and devour entire civilizations like a light snack, was purring contentedly. Its razor-sharp claws, capable of slicing through the very fabric of space-time, were carefully holding down a corner of Sarah's quantum textbook, which kept threatening to dissolve itself and disappear. "Oh, come on, Fluffy," Sarah said, scratching the beast behind what passed for its ears. "You can't seriously think that the Galactic Council's decision on the Betelgeuse trade dispute was fair. It clearly favored the methane breathers." The Razofong made a sound halfway between a growl and a moo, its 6 eyes blinking thoughtfully. A nearby potted plant, which had been minding its own business until that point, suddenly evolved sentience, developed an advanced philosophy of cosmic justice, and then promptly devolved back into a simple fern from the sheer existential weight of the Razofong's gaze. "See?" Sarah exclaimed, oblivious to the cosmic drama unfolding around her. "This is why you're such a good study partner. You always challenge my perspectives." At this point, Administrator Gloopy Gloop could contain himself no longer. With a sound like a wet balloon deflating, he oozed into the room, leaving a trail of panicked slime behind him. "Miss Thompson," he squeaked, his voice an octave higher than usual. "What in the name of cosmic equilibrium do you think you're doing?" Sarah looked up, her expression one of pure innocence and confusion, the kind that could have won her an Oscar in any of the galaxy's 12,387 film industries. "Studying for my intergalactic politics exam, sir." "Is there a problem?" "A problem? A problem?" Gloopy Gloop repeated, quivering in disbelief. "That's a Class 9 predator. It's literally named after its ability to turn entire star systems into cosmic chewing gum." "Oh, you mean Fluffy?" Sarah replied, giving the Razofong another scratch. The creature's purr intensified, causing several nearby datapads to vibrate off their tables and spark a small quantum revolution. "She's harmless once you get to know her," Sarah continued. "Did you know she has some fascinating insights into the socio-political dynamics of the Andromeda Alliance? She's been around longer than most sentient species figured out which end of a spaceship goes forward." Professor Zilk Magnus, who had finally managed to untangle his tentacles from the library's revolving door, which spun through both space and time, joined the group. He fixed Sarah with all 3 of his eye stalks, his voice dripping with enough sarcasm to fill a small moan. "Of course! Why didn't we think of that? Instead of trained exobiologists and safety protocols, we should have just asked the galaxy's most dangerous predator for her opinion on bureaucratic policy decisions. Perhaps next, we can invite a black hole to guest lecture on the finer points of galactic etiquette." Sarah shrugged, seemingly oblivious to the sarcasm pooling around their feet. "Well, to be fair, Fluffy's species has been around for millions of years, longer than most of the races in the Galactic Council. They've seen empires rise and fall, so I'd say that gives her a unique perspective on the long-term consequences of short-sighted political maneuvers." The Razofong, as if understanding the discussion, lifted its head and fixed the educators with a gaze that seemed to peer into the very depths of their souls, or their soul-equivalent organs, in the case of the non-corporeal faculty members. Several of the library's quantum equations solved themselves from sheer intimidation. But how did she even get here? Administrator Gloopy Gloop stammered, his gelatinous form quivering so much that he was on the verge of achieving nuclear fusion. "Our security systems are designed to keep out everything from subatomic particle hijackers to transdimensional telemarketers." Sarah's face lit up with the enthusiasm usually reserved for students who've just been told that all exams had been cancelled due to an outbreak of pangalactic good sense. "Oh, that's a funny story. I was doing my xenobiology field study on Deathtrap 4, a lovely planet. By the way, once you get past the acid rain, carnivorous atmosphere, and the fact that even the laws of physics are actively trying to kill you. Fluffy here sort of followed me home." "Followed you home?" Dr. Bloop Bleep repeated flatly, her antennae twitching in disbelief. "A Razofong followed you, her home? Through interstellar space, past our orbital defense grid, and into one of the most secure academic institutions in the known universe?" "Yep," Sarah beamed, her smile bright enough to trigger photosynthesis in several nearby non-plant life forms. She took a real shine to me after I helped her with a particularly nasty space tick infestation. Did you know their favorite snack is actually those horrible cafeteria mystery meat sandwiches? Who knew, right? I think she followed me because she was worried about my dietary habits. Fluffy can be such a mother hen sometimes. The three educators stood in stunned silence, their various mental processes trying to reconcile the scene before them with everything they thought they knew about the universe. Several of Zilk Magnus' tentacles had tied themselves into knots so complex that mathematicians would study them for generations. Zilk was the first to recover. Though, recover might be too strong a word for someone who looked like they'd just been told that reality was actually a simulation run by a committee of hyper-intelligent cheese. Miss Thompson, he began, his voice carrying the weary tone of someone who had long since abandoned hope for a normal, terror-free academic career. While we appreciate your dedication to interspecies understanding, and your apparent death wish, we simply cannot allow a deadly predator to roam freely around campus. Think of the insurance premiums alone. Sarah's face fell faster than the property values on a planet scheduled for hyperspace bypass construction. But, sir, Fluffy's been here for weeks. She's even been attending classes. Didn't you wonder why Professor Sork's Advanced Quantum Entanglement lecture had perfect attendance last week for the first time in, well, ever? As if on cue, a group of students shuffled past the library entrance. One of them, a methane-breathing gas bag from Nebula Epsilon, called out, "Hey Sarah, is Fluffy coming to study group later? We're covering the collapse of the Third Zonian Empire, and you know how she loves ancient history." Sarah waved back, nearly taking out a passing microdimensional gnat with her enthusiastic gesture. "You bet. She's just helping me finish up this politics essay first. She's got some wild stories about the Zonian Emperor's last days. Apparently, he had a thing for collecting black holes as pets. It didn't end well." The educators turned to watch the students pass, then slowly turned back to Sarah and Fluffy, their expressions a mix of horror, disbelief, and the kind of existential crisis usually reserved for philosophers who've had one too many pandalactic gargle blasters. "Are you telling me," Dr. Bloop Bleep said slowly, her words measured and careful as if explaining quantum mechanics to a particularly dense asteroid, "that not only has this creature been on campus for weeks, but it's been attending classes and study groups?" "Yep," Sarah added helpfully. "Fluffy's brilliant at facilitating debates. Something about her presence really motivates everyone to reach a consensus quickly. I think it's her natural charisma. Or maybe it's the fact that she can devour solar systems. Either way, it's very effective." Administrator Gloopy Gloop, who had been unusually quiet, mainly because he had been slowly melting into a puddle of existential dread, suddenly came to life, as though having an epiphany. "Wait a minute. This explains the mysterious rise in grades across all departments and why the cafeteria reported a surplus of mystery meat supplies for the first time in centuries." Professor Zilk Magnus' tentacles were now tied in knots that would have made a Boy Scout weep with envy, and then immediately change professions to become a theoretical topologist. But, the regulations, the safety protocols, the very laws of nature. Next, you'll be telling me that the void crabs in the quantum physics department have unionized. Sarah chuckled awkwardly. "Funny you should mention that." Before Zilk Magnus could fully process this new existential threat to his sanity, Dr. Bloop Bleep suddenly exclaimed, her earlier fear replaced by the manic gleam of scientific curiosity that had led so many researchers to their doom and occasional breakthroughs. "This is brilliant. Do you have any idea what this could mean for interspecies relations, for our understanding of apex predators, for our cafeteria budget?" Gloopy Gloop's gelatinous form rippled with excitement, small fireworks of realization popping across his surface. "Not to mention the potential boost to our enrollment numbers." Imagine the advertising, study at Galactic University, where even razor fangs come to learn. We could corner the market on educating beings from every known death world in the galaxy. As the educators devolved into a heated discussion about potential academic papers, grant opportunities, and marketing campaigns that could arise from this situation, Sarah turned back to Fluffy with a grin that would have made the Cheshire Cat proud. "See," she whispered, giving the Razofong a final wink. "I told you they'd come around eventually. Humans aren't the only ones who can adapt." Fluffy responded with a purr that caused several nearby stars to flicker in sympathy and a temporally unstable library desk to suddenly decide it had always been a comfortable lounge chair.